Welcome back. This time I wanted to comment with you for you an article written by Jack Watling. Jack Watling is the best source when it comes to the Ukraine war, and is a source I recommend. The article specifically is Ukraine must turn the tide before it can negotiate, and you can find it in Foreign Affairs, and a review that also has very interesting articles, and you can read it with your free trial. It's worth it. And having said that, the parts I wanted to comment are the one related to Zelensky victory plan. The Zelensky's plan that was dismissed by NATO, no surprise, was based on three premises. One was increased military assistance, and that was dismissed. Well, so he has received pledges, but let's not forget that in 2023, he was promised 1 million artillery shells and was delivered only 30% of that number. And it's expected that this year, the NATO is going to deliver about 50% of their pledges. So besides that, is the NATO hasn't been able even to fix in 2 years their procurement problems. Procurement is the way you get companies to bid and to deliver on the armament that government buys in the name of the nation. And it happens that in NATO, for very bureaucratic and political reasons, you have 14 to 15 different kinds of 155 millimeters shells, and some of them are not even compatible with the others. When you, at the moment of placing those shells in the barrels, you are going to use to fire them. So this procurement in NATO is a joke, and to my knowledge, to the best of my knowledge, it has not been fixed. The second is NATO membership. If you ask me, if you accept Ukraine right now in the middle of the war, that would trigger Article 5, yes. But what if you accept Ukraine's NATO membership as soon as the war ends? Well, not even that. So NATO is so afraid of their own shadow that they have dismissed that. So it's not surprised that Trump says that NATO should consider Ukraine's membership in 20 years. And the other, so this has been dismissed by NATO. Then the other point of Zelensky's victory plan was the defense industrial cooperation. The problem is that also this is full of unfulfilled pledges, and there are some valid reasons besides the problem of procurement, and that is security. And you might say, well, but then you have to protect an area in Ukraine. Actually, Zelensky begged for a no-fly zone in Western Ukraine so they can implement a reliable armaments industry in that area. But no surprise, NATO, afraid of Putin, the same Putin who had not been able to beat Ukraine in 2 years, said no. So that's the way Zelensky's victory plan got an early demise. The results is that Zelensky has not enough supplies. He's still outmanned and outgunned by Putin. And you may say, but I have heard that Biden is rushing aid to Ukraine because it's better late than never. No, it's not better late than never. The problem is that he has delivered so far, in Zelensky's words, just 10% of the aid approved by Congress. So he's trying to rush the other 90% in the next 2 months, what is unlikely. And this is absolutely inexcusable, consider that even during the months of Republican obstruction, he could have used the excess defense articles to decommission all weapons, not the new, all weapons, and send them to Ukraine. But he didn't do that. And about that, in the description of the video, I will put the link to a very interesting article in The Hill that is of the same opinion. Considering the fact that Putin is going to have in the USA-China relations, if he wins, and unfortunately he's going to win, it's true that not all the commissioned weapons are destroyed, and we have to pay the companies that destroy those weapons. Not all of them are destroyed, but considering the cost of a Putin's victory on the American economy, it's worth paying. What happens is that Biden's following the stupid Jack Sullivan advice have not even considered that option. Then we have the problem of recruitment. But before that, let me mention that because even here, Roosevelt has something to teach us. In 1940, Roosevelt Lend-Lease started in 1941, but that doesn't mean that he started helping England in 1941. He started in 1940, using every loophole he could use, even agreements like destroyers for bases, useless English Caribbean bases. And that was not the only one, as you can see if you read Robert Dalek's biography of FDR. So we cannot make excuses for Biden. We can't. Then the other consequence is going to be the effect on recruitment, because the less armament Zelensky has, the more casualties he has to regret, because it's precisely he has to commit more troops to those areas he cannot defend with artillery. And on that, Jack Watling describes in a very clear way the effect the lack of artillery and of long-range missiles has in the number of casualties. Let's not forget something. Unfortunately, the bottleneck in in the case of Ukraine is a recruitment. He has at both at the company and the brigade level, and that means that even if you could feed them the all that rest or all that 90%, all the remaining 90% of the aid approved by Congress, they are not going to be prepared to use them. So this is another example of improvisation. Another problem is that we are giving Ukraine the all same assurances, and assurances that have discredited NATO and specifically the United States, because in 1994, with the Budapest Memorandum, Ukraine accepted to denuclearize in exchange of peace, neutrality. That didn't last long because in 2014, Russia invaded the Donbass and Crimea. And Obama didn't stood up to the guarantees we have given Ukraine. And then they came the Minsk Accords. The Minsk Accords were violated by Putin, both, and the United States only throw at Putin cotton balls, the same cotton symbolic sanctions that have had no effect, only to reveal the weakness of NATO's credibility. Then let's mention the consequences. Among the main consequences is something we have seen in Georgia. A recent vote in Georgia have sided with the pro-Putin candidate, and that is expressly for a reason, because they don't want to be the next Ukraine. It's better to have a bad accommodation than to trust NATO. And that's also in the words of Japan's Prime Minister Ichiba, who is proposing an Asian version of NATO, because in his own words, they cannot trust, after Ukraine, they cannot trust the United States. Besides, you can see other symbols, like the case of the International Criminal Court warrants against Putin that were not respected in Mongolia, and the declarations of Hungary and Mexico that they would not enforce those warrants against Putin. That, besides the fact that the Biden's foreign policy with respect to international institutions like the International Criminal Court or the World Trade Organization have had in the institutions on which the international peace relies. Now, I wanted to mention just a couple of things before finishing. Is the diplomatic option, but you cannot trust Putin, so you need with a solution. So, as Watling says, the NATO has to provide substantial security guarantees, but also it has to be the solution has to be credible. The only way you can make it credible is involving China, because Russia is now working inside the Chinese sphere and seeks to protect its access inside the yuan zone, so they cannot return to the West, despite Scholz's naive endeavors. So the only way you can get that is by involving China, and the best way to involve China is with a trade deal that helps them process the excess capacity that is now used for exports before this ends in a trade war, or even worse, as even Paul Krugman has noticed, in a militaristic option. Because of this, we can foresee that the Putin's efforts to destabilize Europe and Africa are going to continue and very probably be expanded to the Middle East. Why? Because Africa and the Middle East are areas of interest for China, and Putin wants to be Xi's senior partner, what he's going to achieve, thanks to Biden, with a victory over Ukraine. So if you want, another article is also in the Hill about this issue is the effects of the escalation paralysis in Biden. I am also including the link in the description. And once more, I invoking the example of FDR, which I mentioned before. Can we reverse the damage caused by the Biden administration? No. We have to pick up the pieces, because whatever damage Biden has caused, Trump is going to make it worse. So, but what are the alternatives? The alternative is we either get to a relationship with China, which is the main course at the end, is the main topic, like we had with Japan in the 1980s and 90s, or we get war. And in either case, we have to be prepared. Having said that, thank you, and I leave you with our newscast.
Good evening. This is Brian Thomas Simons, and these are the main headlines of this hour. Among other news, after months of investigation, The Sun and Fox News, both part of Rupert Murdoch's media conglomerate, unveiled an international conspiracy of illegal immigrants to steal the 2024 United States elections, as well as other elections in Europe. Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott declared, "I am proud of the good job done by our journalists. We're trying to create awareness among citizens both here and in Europe to be alert against this conspiracy because the danger is still there. Anywhere you see an election won by a candidate who hasn't endorsed President Trump, it means the plot is still unfolding. Be alert." Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that Hamas threat is still there. "We must not rest in our fight against terrorism until Likud wins the elections," declared the Prime Minister. New plan to stop unrest in Haiti fails. After the country was split among warlords into 54 independent states, a generalized war among the newly independent nations allows us to conclude that the solution proposed by the United Nations has not had the expected results, declared Antonio Guterres, General Secretary of the United Nations. This has been the news of the hour. Sponsored by Church of the Holy Redeemer's Power in the Spirit. Have you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior? Did you vote for Trump in 2016 and then in 2020? This is the right church for you. If so, Church of the Holy Redeemer's Power in the Spirit is the only Christian church that can promise you in the Lord to have 72 virgins in heaven for only a donation of $50 a month. You will have access to those 72 virgins in heaven. For an additional $25, you will be allowed to replace 10 of them, and for $100, Heaven Premium, you will be allowed to choose them for yourself. Guaranteed, if you're not satisfied with those 72 virgins after you die, full refund of your money. We accept Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover.